Brandy Allen. I'm the Conferences Director for the Alliance for Innovation, and I would like to welcome you to our 2018 TLG Case Study Virtual Open House. This is the first time we're doing this, so thanks so much for trying something new with us. Hopefully it's helpful and you can get all your questions answered. For the next 15 minutes, we'll go over everything TLG case studies. And at the end of our quick presentation, we want to hear from you. We want to get your questions at the end. I have a couple things to share up front, but this is really about getting your questions answered. So once I get through my info, we'll do a Q&A, and it'll be your turn to talk. So I just want to start a little bit, just a quick background of the conference. This is the 24th Transforming Local Government Conference. TLG is the annual gathering place for local government professionals seeking innovative ways to connect people and ideas that support their efforts to be the best communities. TLG is all about meeting up with old friends and making new friends around dynamic content that encourages free thinking and fosters unprecedented ideas, all within a relaxed and professional networking and learning environment. It's pretty great, right? So we want you to be one of those conversation starters. TLG will be in Tacoma, Washington this year, the first week of April, April 3rd through 6th. We're excited about having you guys there. So before I jump into the content, let's just talk a little bit about GoToWebinar. So let's look at your options here just for a second. Looking at arrow number 1, you can show or hide your control panel at the top of the toolbox with a small arrow. You can also put your screen in full screen mode using the rectangle in the upper right of the toolbox. Arrow number 2 points out that all attendees are muted during the webinar. We do this to ensure that everyone can hear the presenters, but we do encourage your participation. As I said before, this is about getting your questions answered. So we ask that you submit questions throughout the webinar. And then arrow number 3 highlights the question box where you do that. So you can type your questions for the panelists throughout the webinar. To do so, click on the plus sign next to the questions and type your question in there. Once you've typed it in, just make sure you click send. We'll be taking your questions at the end of the presentation, so feel free to send those in at any time. And then there's also another option. You can raise your hand on the GoToWebinar panel. We can unmute you to ask your question, and we'll do that again, like I said, at the end after I share a little bit up front with you. Also, we encourage you to tweet with us throughout the webinar using the hashtag TLG2018, and then also be sure to tag @TransformGov. So let's get started. Let's get into it. You might be asking, why should I submit a TLG case study? So TLG is your platform to highlight your organization's innovations and also help others learn from your experiences. That's why we ask you to share your story with us. And let me say also, your stories do not have to be all pretty, harmonious situations where everything fell into place by happenstance. I mean, the reality is that failure is part, and sometimes it's key to the innovation process. Creating great cities and counties can be messy. We're a community that grows together by sharing stories across city and county, state, and country lines. What we do expect, though, is that your stories are told in an entertaining and engaging format. This is TLG after all. We want to connect and we want to have fun. So let's talk a little bit about just what are we looking for in these case studies, right? I mean, I think this is why we're here. So the Alliance for Innovation defines innovation as a changed process, approach, product, or service that's new to you or to your organization, and it produces better results that are valued. Innovation at its core is about making things better in ways that are useful and valuable to people. It's about changing our services, our processes, our tools, our products to add value that matters to the people that use them. It's about discovering challenges and opportunities, designing possible enhancements, evaluating, selecting the best ones, and then using our ideas, our skills, our talents, our data, and our relationships to serve even better. So all of that to say is that we want to hear about your innovations, whether they're big or small, incremental or disruptive. It's about something new. It demands that we take risks, that we leave behind some big or small part of what was, and move in favor of what might be. So innovations in these two categories, I mean, it's about creating something unique and brand new to anything that is currently happening in local government. But it's also about doing something new and inventive in your community with something familiar. So how did you make it new to you? So I'll give you just an example. Say we just got a new 311 system. So it's new to you. Is that innovative? So I would then ask you, well, what did you do differently with your 311 system in a different and a unique way? So innovation is most powerful when it's adopted by others as well. So if you can show how it's replicable, that's a great point to make as well. Each year, we ask for applications around subtopics. So let's talk a little bit about the 5 categories that we're looking to for this year. This is just a small piece of them. So when you go online and whenever you move forward in the next steps, you'll see these are expanded and there's a little bit more information in each of these categories. I'll start with the first one here, thinking like a futurist. So we want to know, what steps are you taking to become a resilient community? Can you showcase sustainability efforts that focus on environmental or economic or social justice factors? Is there something in your organization that you guys are thinking about for 20 and 50 years from now? So that's that category. The next one, reinventing local government. Some examples here would be, how are you using performance management and metrics to improve your organization? How are you maximizing opportunities to become a smart city? Are you investing in the future workforce? So those are things that are some ideas and some examples of what would apply there. Moving on to our third category for this year, we've got Culture Club. This is a new category for us, and maybe it makes you think of bright colored hair in the 80s, which is great, it should. We're hoping that it does. But I'm really excited about this category. So we want to hear about how your organization allows great ideas to come to life, right? I mean, how do you handle the generation of ideas? How do you push them through? How they are allowed to come to life in your organization? How did you get started down that path? How do you keep the innovation flame burning? Have you created an ecosystem for new ideas and addresses and challenges? So that's what we want to hear about there. Moving on next to community networking. This is about partnerships and collaborations that are in place. They could be public, they can be private. How are you creating new ones, for example? And then our final one, what about all this data, right? We've got all this data, we're capturing all this information. How do we make it helpful? So we want to know how you're using this data to become a better community. So that would be that category there. So I want to add here, you'll see that we don't just want to hear about technology. What you're doing in new leadership programs, for example. We've left categories somewhat broad intentionally. Want to give you the option to define your case study here. So once we have your case study, we designed a thorough selection process. Let's go over those details just a little bit. I'll just kind of go over a couple points. All applications will be read and reviewed by a selection committee. That selection committee is made up of innovation ambassadors, chief innovation officers, our board members. Some of our staff participate in that, as well as host community members. You can see here the weight of each of the criteria. I want to highlight just a couple things. Only 2 applications per organization. I mean, we really try to share the love and get as many organizations kind of sharing their stories across the country. And then case studies also should have been implemented in the last 2 years. So we want to see some provable data on the project. It's really important to not just share your ideas, but also share how it's worked, a little bit of the outcomes of that story. The top applications are scheduled for an interview during the selection process. Be prepared to show a sample of your presentation at the interview. I mean, the on-site presentation is very important at TLG, the on-site experience, that engaging piece, the fun piece of your presentation. Committee members using the same evaluation system weigh and score each application at the conclusion of the oral interview. The top applications are then forwarded to the final selection committee for further review and final selection. The pie to the right of the page here shows how they're scored as well. And finally, the most important part, of course, how to apply. So you need to complete the application form and email it to learning@transform.gov by September 1, and you can find that form on our website. All local governments are welcome to submit a case study application. You don't have to be an Alliance member. However, we do request an opportunity to meet with your organization and share the value and benefits of membership prior to the conference. So please suggest a couple meeting dates and times on the application to meet with your regional director and talk about that. Local government organizations that are selected as case study presenters and awardees of an Alliance for Innovation Award are responsible for all associated costs. For example, presenters pay a registration fee. It's steeply discounted, but there's still a fee associated with it. All travel expenses, not limited to the air travel, hotel, car rental, any costs associated with the conference. Just want you to know that there's some associated with that. So this is the part where we get to hear from you guys. So let's open it up now and hear from those on the call. What questions do you have about the TLG case study program? So I'm going to go in, look up some questions. Great, so we have some in. The first question, questions at interview. Are teams expected to have a PowerPoint ready about the case study? The answer to that is yes. You are expected to show a sample of your presentation. We do not need to know what your whole plan is in detail for the full hour of your sessions, but we want to get a taste for the flavor, for the environment that you intend to create around your case study presentation. So I would say, 3 to 5 slides at the most. Maybe share some thoughts around what you're thinking about doing in your engagement piece. So just a sample, a brief sample. You do not have to have it all thought out and developed. Hope that helps. A couple more. Getting to those. What if I can't submit by September 1? Yeah, that happens, right? You have a family emergency, medical emergency comes up. Just let us know. If you could let us know before the 1st, you want to submit an application, but you're not going to get it in by the 1st. We can be flexible. We can work with you and give you a couple extra days. There is a review process, as I had mentioned before, that are a lot of people are involved and engaged in that process. So there will be a definite cutoff time where we can't take applications, but if there's something going on, just connect with myself or the email on the application. It's learning@transform.gov. Just connect, let us know what's going on, and we're happy to work with you. Another question. But they do not have to have the, oh, that's right. That's a good question. So about the sample so the question that came in about the presentation, do I have to have my PowerPoint presentation ready by the deadline? No, you don't. So that's for, as I said before, there's an initial review of applications. And those that are selected to move forward in the process, then you'll receive an email from me to be notified that you're moving on to an oral interview. And at that oral interview is where you'll make your brief presentation. Next question. I don't know if my case study falls into any of those categories. How should I apply? That's a great question. So, the categories are broad. And if you don't think that they fall into any of the categories, again, I would say just reach out to us and let us know that. If it's a great story and it doesn't fit into the categories, it's about sharing that great story and sharing that innovation. Again, we're happy to work with you about that. Oh, kind of a similar idea. Should I apply if they don't fall into it? Yes. So like I said, please go ahead and apply. if they don't fall into any categories. Oh, this is a great question. If we're still in implementation mode for the item and gathering data, are we still eligible to apply? So I would say yes, of course, you're still eligible to apply. Just some historical background, our selection committee, they really like to see some provable data, right? I mean, how do we know it's a great idea? How do we know it works? How do we know it's successful? And so in cases like that, especially if it's a great idea, and you might be asked to, thank you so much for applying, apply again next year, the following year, whenever we can just have a little bit more info around the project. Gosh, lots of questions. Thanks, guys. So I work in the planning department and would like to apply, but what if others in the organization have already submitted 2 apps? How should I find this out? That's right. So, I mean, applications can come. We at TLG is a very broad attendee base, and so we want to get applications out of the manager's office, in the planning department, out of libraries, out of public safety, and so we want a broad plan of case studies presented. So I would encourage you maybe to reach out to your innovation ambassador to have a point of contact for submitting applications. That way you guys can know how many applications you're presenting, and you can select internally what applications you want to move forward and which ones you want to submit. If we get more than 2, we'll also reach out to you and let you know that that's happened. And again, then we'll just put it back on you guys to select the applications that you want to put forward. It's a good question. Next question. For the engagement piece, do we have to do an exercise? The topic we plan to submit is pretty unique, and usually people ask us tons of questions. We'd like to use that time for Q&A. Would that cost us points? So a couple points about that, how the presentation itself is typically designed. So you have an hour to present. That would include 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A, as well as an engagement piece. I mean, people at TLG, they really want to talk to each other as well as you. I mean, they want to get their hands dirty. They want to try out the innovations. They want to start to work on the applications while they're still sitting at the table in Tacoma. So I would highly, highly encourage you to have an engagement piece of some point, more than Q&A. We'll do Q&A in the presentation, like I said, 10 to 15 minutes, but also presenting the information in a creative and entertaining way is a very important piece of TLG. So I've had a question about awards, and that's a very good point. So as you guys know, so we'll do a call for applications for the TLG conference. And then we also do a call for applications for innovation awards. Those are 2 separate things. They're both kind of occur at TLG, but they are 2 separate categories. We'll do the call for innovation awards later in the year. That usually comes out like November, December timeframe. Those are separate applications. Those are separate categories. These are more, so the innovation awards are more like true game changers in local government, in the field, and what are people, we call them quantum leaps of creativity. So those are 2 different categories. So thanks for asking about that and getting that clarified. Great point. Oh, good question. How long should we plan presentations to be at TLG? We have a couple different categories. Most presentations are 1 hour long, and you have that time to fill with your activity, with your engagement piece, presenting your content, as well as your Q&A time. And then we also have rapid fire presentations at TLG. You'll see that on the application. You get to opt into that as an option. So these are like fire hose innovation stories. You have 10 minutes to present. It's real time, you're moving. We put the slides on auto forward and you've got to move through and get through. But the advantage to that is people can sit in a session and hear 5 and 6, like really cool ideas in a really fun and different kind of way. We also do them at the end of the day, and there's a cash bar available. So they're very fun. It's a lot of fun. And you get to hear, again, just some diverse stories in a pretty intense package. So those 2 options are really available, the hour-long sessions, 10-minute sessions. Good point. So one of the staffers, Miss Courtney Hayden in the background helping out, had suggested that we mention some samples, which is great. Here's the question. On our website, you can see samples of presentations that folks have done in the past. So that's a very good point. If you kind of want to get a feel for successful presentations, that's great. Just a couple questions about the process. If we're selected, when would we find out? As I mentioned before, it's a pretty long selection process. We have committees. We have 2 committees that there's an initial review committee and then there's a final selection committee. We've put a lot of thought and thoroughness into the process. So that it all takes about 2.5 months. So you can expect to hear word back from me about mid-November. And again, that email would come from me. I'll let you know who was selected and who we need more information. We also, I want to point out here, so folks that aren't selected to present, it's still just, your stories are great, and we really want to share them throughout our community. So we'll use those stories, possibly a webinar. We'll also use those stories, we'll ask to get information and share it in our newsletter. So there's still life, and we'll continue to use that information. So and share your story and all the great things that you guys are doing. So that's great. Another question: if I submit a project for a case study, can I submit the same project for an award later? Yes, absolutely. Especially if it was selected as a case study, that means the selection committee thinks it's really great, so it has a lot of potential to be accepted as an award as well. There are a couple questions that are different on the award application than on the case study application, so you might, you'll just need to rework some of those questions and add new information there, but otherwise, yes, absolutely. That'd be great. So we've got just a couple minutes left, and I think that we're towards the end of the questions. So that's great. Those were really good questions. I'm happy to hear that you guys are really thinking it through. TLG is a unique experience in the case studies. We see survey after survey each year. The case studies are a large piece of why people come. I mean, case studies are hearing about some of the best programs in the country directly from the teams that created them and implemented them and brought them to life. And so this is it's a great resource, and it's a big reason why people come to the conference. So we work very closely with you during the presentation process to get ready and to get all things on deck. I do want to direct you, the conference website is tlgconference.org. You can get there from our website as well, or you can just go straight there. You'll see more information there about how to submit the case study, the application itself, just a little bit more info on the website there. So in closing, I think we're kind of come to the end of the presentation. We hope to see you all in Tacoma, Washington. Like I said before, it's the first week, April 3rd through 6th. With case study applications due September 1st, you still have time to submit. We'd like to thank everybody on the call today for joining us. At the Alliance, we're very excited about TLG. I hope you can tell that. Since it shows the great work of our members, and we're excited to be a platform to help you share your stories. If you do still have questions, I apologize if we didn't get to all those. Please feel free to reach out to me at any time. You can do that from the conference website. My email is on the Alliance website as well. We hope to see your case studies in our inbox very soon. So thanks so much, everybody, and have a wonderful day.